How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Cycle Kart Workshop. We're going to continue on the club kart build, and today I'm working on some foam pieces, so plenty to show you, so let's get started. As I've mentioned before, the rear cover and this part of the body below the chassis here and the radiator, they're all going to be foam core covered with fiberglass. They're compound shapes, and you certainly could make them out of metal, but we're going to show some alternative ways to do it. And I did this on the BMW rear cover, so I'm familiar with the process. Alright, let me show you some of the things I've already started. In a previous update, you had seen these cardboard pieces. Now this is the shape of the rear cover. And once I get close to shaping the foam, then I can use this to check the shape. Same thing for the radiator. It's the side view, and there's a top view. Also in previous updates, you've seen this rear cover taking shape, and as you recall, there was a piece of plywood on here. What I really need is just a wooden perimeter frame out of wood, so I have it set up out here where I'm cutting out the center. So let's work on that next. It's taken me a while, but I've made progress on the foundation pieces for the foam blocks. This is installed now, and you'll notice there's a slight recess in the plywood to allow for the thickness of the fiberglass skin. I'd like it to be flush when I'm all finished. For the tail here, I could use a piece of foam, but I've learned that then this tail will be soft, easy to dent if it's foam. Instead I made up this balsa block here. I'm going to use that. It won't be very heavy, it'll be easy to carve, and it'll hold up better than just foam. So I'm going to temporarily screw this in place, get it shaped, then I can cover it with fiberglass, and later I'll add screws and glue for a permanent installation. You can see where I can chop off most of it. Okay. Here I have temporarily screwed it in place. Later it will get glued on. But you can see I've chopped away most of it, and it's a little long right now, but that will come into shape eventually. So you can see where I'll cut a foam block that will fit right up against this. A little bit oversized so I can work it down. This is coming together pretty good. The more I think about it, I need to permanently install this thing. Put the brackets on so I can reinstall it right exactly where it goes, because it's a little bit flexible, and I don't want that when I'm trying to get it to fit just right. So before I do the foam blocks, I need to work on how I'm going to attach this to the cart. It's always something. So while Steve is working on the pedal box, I've been working on these little tabs right here. They're cold rolled steel, riveted here, and then there'll be a screw into the sheet metal steel here and here. Same thing on this side. And I'm also working on one that goes here, a strap of sorts. I'll show you that one here in a second. While I'm rigging up the permanent tabs, I've temporarily nut and bolted it into place so it's not going anywhere, and it's lined up perfectly while I make the tabs.
So we spent the better part of today, in fact all of today, rebuilding our pedal box. We discovered a couple things. Primarily when we put the brake pedal on over here, there was no travel where the master cylinder was mounted. So we redid that. While we're at it, we made it with thicker material. What was happening was the bottom of this little thing in its travel was bottoming out on the bottom of the cart, or on the floor. So I ground this down a little bit, but this 1/2 inch metal is a little too thin, so I think this is 3/4 inch thick. Yeah, so 3/4 thick. Now you can see down here, as I push through the travel, it's not touching the floor anymore. And we got full pedal travel on the brake. And I'm working on the throttle pedal, getting that installed, so yeah, it's coming along. Okay, so we got the pedal box installed in the car, and we're working on making the throttle attachment to the throttle pedal. Now there's several places you can put it on here depending on how much throttle, how much movement you want on your pedal. If you want it to go a lot or a little bit to get full throttle. So sometimes you might find you have to go really far to get full throttle, and this isn't hooked up or anything, but it might wear your foot out, so keep that in mind. That'll be something once you put your motor in. So the next thing we're going to do is hook up a method to hook this to the throttle cable, to attach this little cable to that rod. So that'll be the next part of this process. Okay, for our next little bit, we're going to go ahead and put the tie rods on. So we just got these in the mail. These are really nice wedge pieces. It's threaded rod inside here, or threaded tube, I guess you'd say. And it comes with these nice nuts and bolts that have these little chamfered bits on them, and that helps you, when they put this in here, to have more articulation, because if you put a straight bolt on top, it sometimes bottoms out before it limits the travel. So nice pieces. We're going to go ahead and put these on the car. Alright, so we're closing in on the end of build day number 9, I guess it is, and we got the tie rods installed, and these are nice parts. We have a little bit of interference issue at the body, and a little bit of alignment we're going to have to work on in the next video. So if you watch, I'll go to the travel here. You can see right down here it's touching the body here. So it's got nice articulation. We want to try to, I got to press the springs down to get it to go all the way through its travel. But we're trying to get it perpendicular all the way across and level all the way across. And what's happening right now, it's a little bit down and this down and backwards. We need to move this just a little bit to get this straight. The idea is you want to have it straight. You don't want to introduce any weirdness in your suspension if you don't have to. So we're going to do a little bit of work on it next week to try to get this just straight and perfect, and it will drive nice and straight and true. So Mark did a great job on these pieces, but we're going to fine tune them a little bit. So more to come.
I finished preparing this piece of plywood to accept the foam block that will be the radiator shape. I will ultimately glue the foam to this piece of plywood, and then I left just enough recess all the way around for the thickness of the fiberglass. It was nice having Steve over today for our build day while he was working on the pedals and the throttle. I was focused on attaching this rear cover. It pretty much took me all day, but I managed to get it firmly attached. Here's a strap. These are a couple of 1/4-20 machine screws. They thread into a nut that I welded on a piece of steel. Here's the rivets that hold in that little plate on the back side. I'll show you that here. There you can see that. It worked out pretty good. It's not pretty, but it works well. And then here's the attachment points here. This is a self-tapping screw. Same one we used on the chassis. So now that this is firmly attached, I can focus on finally cutting some foam. So let's do a little slideshow here. This is a photograph from 2015 when I was doing the rear cover for the BMW. Here you can see a piece of foam, and I'm using a side grinder to whittle it down. Here you can see where I've shaped it. In this case I used foam for the tail. Now I was getting ready to put fiberglass on it, so this is wax paper because I wanted the fiberglass cover to release from the foam. So I covered it with wax paper and using Scotch tape, which is what I'm going to do this time around. Here's the first layer of glass going on and some resin. You can see I haven't trimmed it yet. So this is after, let's see, I think I put 2 or 3 layers of glass, several coats of epoxy, and here you can see where it's released from the mold. It hasn't been trimmed to fit yet. And here you can see where it's been trimmed to fit and it's being held in with screws. This is a piece of plywood here. This is aluminum here and here. In the club cart, it's going to be plywood around the whole perimeter. So anyway, that's the direction we're going. Right now I'm working on some foam, cutting some foam blocks, so let me show you that. If you recall from an earlier update, Steve Vinson rounded up this big block of foam. So I just finished cutting it in half basically. The parts that I need are right here, and basically everything can be 7 inches or less. So it was a 14-inch thick block, so I sliced it in half, and I had made these aluminum strips where one edge is super smooth. I sanded it with several grits till it was very smooth, and then using this hot wire cutter, this is nichrome wire, Ni-chrome, and then I have this variable transformer here that I can dial up to where the wire will heat up and melt through the foam. So here you can see the aluminum is the guide, so I apply pressure to those as the wire melts through. So I'm going to cut this one now. Let's see how it goes. So I'm applying light pressure and just letting the weight of the cutter slice through the foam. The aluminum strips are held in with rivets, just pushed into the foam. You can see how it's cutting through. Almost there. See, it does a pretty nice job. So that's the rear cover, the upper part. Now I have to cut this other piece, a couple of pieces. Things are looking up. I have the foam blocks cut and just resting in place. I have to glue them on to the plywood base. So far so good. So let me show you how the cardboard comes into play. So there'll be quite a bit of foam that has to get whittled away, but let's just eyeball this thing up here for a second. So that's rough, but you get the idea. Let's be close to where it'll end up. And then I have one for the front here. I could do the same thing. So that'll help me kind of get the sculpting started. I think this will be the end of this update. I wanted to get far enough along that you could see where I was headed with these foam blocks. So in the next update, we'll cut some shape here, rough them out, so to speak, get them glued to the plywood base. All right, so we'll be having another build day, not this weekend, but next weekend. So watch out for that. Like and subscribe. Go over to Steve Vincent's channel and check that out also. Thanks for watching, everybody.